Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
Yeah, I don't even remember the text. But Liz, I want you to take...
Wow, that's pretty dismissive. Yeah, I don't even remember the text. Anyway, Liz, we all agree you're the problem. Oh, boy.
...beside me, right or wrong. And I thought that was you.
But I can't do that when it was a lie. You could have just told me you reached out.
Yeah, I don't even remember the text. But Liz, I want you to take accountability for yourself.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, I would rather have had him just explode and storm off than this calm, arrogant, superior, blame, smokescreen bullshit. I mean, accountability for what? What? For being the healthiest person at the tell-all, for being the most differentiated, caring, compassionate, accommodating person that you would ever meet, Ed, in your entire life. Take accountability for that. Now, they edited this and they've edited the whole thing, so maybe I missed something. Doesn't look like it, though, but my God. Take accountability, Ed. Ugh. Ugh. Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't even remember the text.
I mean, just imagine that. The whole thing was about Rose. She lays it out and says, I can't stand behind you when you lie. You could have just told me that you did it. I told you what I did when I was single in between our breakups, and it hurts my feelings. And so you lied, and you could have just told me. And then he says, yeah, I don't even remember the text. Anyway. Now, if he truly doesn't remember, which is very weird to imagine, but it's possible, then you'd think he would elaborate on that. He'd be like, well, I want to be clear. I don't remember sending those texts. Now, it would be now he could claim he was extremely intoxicated. Okay. But I don't think that's the case. There's not a lot of evidence for that, but it would be very weird because it wasn't just texting, right? He was offering to come to the Philippines. You'd think you would remember offering to someone, I want to come to the Philippines and be with you. You think you'd remember, because you'd think you'd have to like plan at least for 3 seconds in your head. It's like, okay, is this possible? Do I want to? It's a pretty big commitment. You'd think you'd remember that. Now, it was in the summer of 2021, which is a year and a half ago for us, but probably a year ago from them. They're outside, so I'm guessing it's summer. So a year's time, but still, you'd think you would remember that. At the very least, you would double down on that and say, like, I want to be clear, I don't remember. But that's not what he said. Yeah, I don't remember this stuff. Anyway, Liz, you have to take accountability. I will say it again. My guess is that he is desperate for attachment security and also feels like he is not worth it. And his way of coping is to blame. It's never my fault, because if it's my fault, you're going to leave me. If it's my fault, I'm worthless. So I'm going to blame you. It's always your fault.
Liz, I want you to take accountability for yourself. You have to. I don't just decide one day,
Well,
I'm going to break up with you. No, Liz.
Right now, Ed, it's the fact that you got caught and you still denied it, and it was
I
right
didn't get caught
there.
in anything.
Okay, Ed, if you didn't lie, you truly did forget, then explain it. And what is she supposed to take accountability for? So there is a weird world, if I were there and I saw the unedited version of this whole thing, that I would maybe see a shred of truth in this, and that there was more reason for Liz to accept that he didn't remember. But just that whole thing, like me no speaky English, that whole thing, and the way he was talking to her, it just looked like that very consistent pattern that he has, in which he tries to get out of blame by blaming and putting down and calling her immature and saying she's trying to be a victim and making a fool out of her and deflecting and saying, I'm not the jealous one, you're the jealous one. This is her. She's always jealous. I did not see jealousy in Liz at all. I just saw someone that was hurt that someone would lie, and not even particularly that hurt. She didn't completely decompensate. She's just like, did you really? Did you? That's all. She was just asking, and she's still in a very matter-of-fact way.
You act like I'm trying to lie to you. I'm not trying to lie to you. Just because I didn't remember
It just
that I had
seems like
texted her on
you
one
don't
of...
remember a lot of things.
I don't.
But somehow you remember
Number one-
everything I do.
Number one, I don't lie. And here I'm trying to defend myself. And I have 6 other couples pouncing down my throat. And you're standing...
You would think if you're Ed, you'd say, what's the equation here? Everyone's pouncing down my throat, including Sean and Liz. So maybe I need to take accountability.
there and you're letting me drown, and you started to perform.
I'm performing?
You were performing. You're acting like a little attorney.
Thanks
You-
Oh, wow. I mean, I have been watching it a long time, 3 years almost, in fact, and I've never reacted the way the public did, or the average public. When he had long hair, when he put mayonnaise in his hair, I thought, well, if you look at a lot of different beauty practices, when he was going after Rose about her bad breath or the halikmi and the hair on the legs, I thought, well, you could say that, but there's a different way to say it, and it's pretty unkind and hurtful. The hurtfulness progressed through the season, the STD, and then hounding her about her previous partner, and then saying, I didn't want to have a kid, even though he said so. There's a lot worse transgressions out there. Point is that I've seen Ed through a lot of situations, and I've never been this, what's the emotion? Disgusted is the word, is the emotion. Disgust. Frustration and anger. It's so unrelenting when he goes into this mode. I think another part of it is that Liz she's being so healthy in this conversation, and in other conversations she will be as well. She doesn't fight back, and she does fight back in a sense, in that she will stand up for herself, but in a calm, differentiated way. She doesn't go on the attack usually. She just is, no, let me explain to you. And she says it in a way that is very kind to him, but still saying the truth. And this is disgusting. I have a feeling of vomit when I watch. And it's not just this moment, it's the repetitive nature of the season of that. Now, have I felt disgust and, the feeling of wanting to vomit when I work with clients that I have tremendous compassion for? Yes. As I tell my trainees, people come to therapy because they have problems. I say this very obvious thing, because I feel like we as therapists have to be reminded of that not, clients don't come to therapy because everything's fine. They come to therapy because there's something wrong. There's something going on that they want to change. And there's a pretty strong possibility that at least one of the major factors that's contributing to the problem is the person themselves, is their personality, their distortions, their behavior, their attitudes, this sort of thing. And so it's normal to experience not only this sort of behavior and much worse, but also the commensurate human reactivity to it. It's what we do with it as a human being or as a therapist, right? If I, as a therapist, have that feeling and I attack him or reject him or something, that's not therapeutic. But if I note it and say, wow, calm down, Kirk, because you're not going to be helpful. And there's a lot of different ways you can use it, right? One way to use it as a therapist is to say, okay, he must he must be having a lot of distress. So if he were a client, he's not. This isn't a session, but if I had this feeling while I watched a couple, I would go through a lot of different flow chart things and eventually get to this point where I would ask some questions in my head, maybe ask them to him, which is, he must be in so much distress. There's a possibility that he is under so much stress right now that he is resorting to some very ugly old defenses that he learned when he was growing up or much younger, meaning when he was a young adult or something. And so he looks like he's calm, but he might feel so much rejection, not only from Liz, but the cast and the world and whatever. And he is desperately trying to protect himself by blaming her. Doesn't make it okay, but it does provide some conceptualization of it. That would be one. Two, I'm feeling disgust. Sometimes people will give me their feelings to metabolize for them, not in an energy sense, but in a interpersonal sense. In that, if I feel disgust, it's possible that he was made to feel disgust when he was going through his traumas in life, that his family were doing things that were disgusting to him, and he was feeling repulsed, disgusted, and judgmental. That's actually interesting, is like, because not only is it disgust, but it provokes a judgmentalism from me to him. And he does that to people, right? He is judgmental of others. And so we could imagine him early in life watching his parents or experiencing his parents and feeling an onslaught of unfairness and feeling also judgmental and disgust for them. Just like, you people, you and your you're just always having this issue. We could absolutely imagine him going through something like that. We could imagine him being that way. And so using my feeling as a gauge of what might be going on inside of him is interesting. I don't know if that is accurate, but it's just an assessment tool, a data point to grow from and to ask questions about, to go down a path of exploration. Another thing that could be happening is that Liz is giving me, the feeling that she denies in herself, that she has a lot of disgust and anger and frustration that are naturally happening inside of her, but she doesn't feel safe to express them because of Ed's abuse or because she's never felt safe to express that throughout her life. And so she's giving me and us that feeling because part of the feeling I have doesn't have to do with me and Ed. It has to do with me and the two of them. If she were to react more strongly against him or something, I might have much less of a feeling because she's exhibiting that feeling and not dumping it on me. It's not a conscious thing, of course. And of course, I'm not even in the room and she's doing nothing to me. I'm watching a TV show. It's another possibility is that she is denying her anger and disgust, and we are feeling it for her as a triangulated third.
Thing I do.
Number one, I don't lie. And here I'm trying to defend myself. And I have 6 other couples pouncing down my throat. And you're standing there and you're letting me drown. And you started to perform.
I'm performing?
You were performing.
Right, and that was another element to this, that he could be projecting. Now, he could be using that word as a passive aggression because he watched the show or something and heard her saying that he was performing in front of that model, the subject, while he's taking pictures. So he could be trying to get her back for that, consciously or subconsciously. But the other thing is a lot of people would claim that he's, of the two of them, the performer. So is he projecting again? But yeah, she's performing. Wow.
Performing, you're acting like a little attorney.
And then acting like a little attorney. It's so demeaning. There are so many other ways to say what I think he's trying to get across. Just say, hey, I felt hung out to dry, felt threw under the bus. Okay, it's not true, but that is so much easier to swallow or at least work with than you are faking a performance because you're trying to show off to everyone else at my expense, and you're acting like a little attorney. I mean, oh my God. Oh, Jiminy Crickets.
There, and you're letting me drown, and you started to perform.
I'm performing?
You were performing. You're acting like a little attorney.
Thanks for your apologies.
Yeah, good for her. Thanks for your apology, pal. I think she acknowledges in this moment, that wasn't, you said you apologize. You said you want to take responsibility. You said you're sorry. But at no point did you indicate that you actually believe that you committed a transgression. You're just saying the words. And so she has probably heard this a lot, and she was trying to work with it, even though he wasn't following up the I'm sorry with an actual apology. And then when he starts to just outright insult her in a pretty aggressive manner, she says, the whole reason why I even sat down with you here is because presumably you were going to apologize. So now it kind of looks like consciously or subconsciously he was saying I'm sorry as a way to suck her back in. I mean, at the very least, that wouldn't be an inaccurate hypothesis to develop because of what happened. That it was a manipulation because he knew, and we've seen this before with Rose, we saw this many times with Rose, that he would totally screw the pooch. Is that a bad saying? I don't even know what that means. Is that literally what it means? Because pooch, it's a dog. So anyway, he would realize that he made this big mistake and he had lost Rose. And then he would go to her and say, I'm so sorry. Please take me back. I take full responsibility. I'm so sorry. But seemingly not follow it up with what he actually transgressed upon without, and especially not talking about what factors in his personality led him to commit that transgression. And then he would commit the transgression again, and then he would apologize. And it has this look of someone that is sorry, that is apologizing, that has self-awareness, that is willing to take responsibility. But it doesn't seem to be that.
And you're letting me drown, and you started to perform.
I'm performing?
You were performing. You're acting like a little attorney.
Thanks for your apologies. I'm just a performance.
Oh.
Pathetic apology when
Okay,
you're
well,
saying that I'm performing.
You were performing, Liz.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you know what?
That's how I felt.
Okay, that's how you felt. That doesn't mean it's true. Your feelings aren't always a reflection of reality. That's another smokescreen. So it's so upsetting for Liz and anyone else who dates him, Rose, but also mainly him. Rose and Liz, they'll move on. They could find someone else. Ed is stuck with Ed. So what I think more clearly than ever that I've seen this season is that he is so terrified of loss that he has an abusive streak. I can't know that, but it looks that way. It's a particular version of abuse, and I'm using my arm for a gauge of. So abusive, I don't know about it, but abusive people typically, if they're not a sadistic psychopath, the reason why they're abusing is because they're trying to attain attachment security through a very destructive, potentially illegal means, immoral at the very least, because you can't control other people, but they're trying to get control. So if full control is over here, the needle of the gauge, if full control is over here, they believe if they can just get the needle all the way to full control, and they probably aren't fully aware of this, but they're every step of the way they're trying to get control. I don't want you to work, and I don't want you to believe that you know things, and I want everyone to understand that you're the stupid, immature one, and I want you to stop talking, and I don't want you to drive a friend home from work, and I don't want you talking to that lesbian, and I don't want you, it's just efforts to get full control, and they erroneously believe that if they can finally arrive, then they can relax. But it never ends. There's no end to the amount of control, and there's no amount of control that will make them feel attachment secure, because their attachment security is there to stay until they heal from it through other means. They're always trying to do that. And as they lose attachment security, they lose control, and they feel the other person pulling away. So they're starting to lose control, and a different set of mechanisms kick in. And we've known this for a long time. This is nothing new, and this isn't new to me, or it's not unique to me. People who understand this, and it's researched. But as they lose control, they will start to act more nice and less controlling. And so you say to someone, "Hey, I'm sorry. I take full responsibility." Might even cry. I messed up. I should never have done that. Okay, then the person turns and says, "Okay, I'm listening." Okay, a little bit of control. Then more statements of, "Hey, I just didn't like it when you did this." And then if the victim responds and gets kind of wrapped up in it, then the control ramps up, and eventually you're in a situation where the person who came to apologize is now blasting you and insulting you and putting you down and making you feel like crap and telling you that you don't know anything about anything. And so it's always just trying. We saw Angela do this. We've seen Ed do this. I don't know if they're abusive. We'd have to assess the situation clinically, but it does have that look to it. Angela's version of abuse is her version. I don't have to describe it. It's pretty overt. His is more subtle, though, although unmistakable in its markers. Meaning that I'm sure y'all, when you watch this, you're just maybe even well before I was even ready to label it as such, would see it that way. Now, I want to be clear. Underneath all of that is a vast sea of worthlessness and a lot of bad modeling from previous, from one's parents or caregivers, meaning that he probably saw this kind of behavior. I'm just going to take a guess and say that the dad was the one doing this to his mom, and he watched that and is following in his dad's footsteps. I don't know, or the other way around, or both, or something else. Now, the difference, though, is that in the beginning, I think Liz would be convinced by it, that she would give in, that she would get thrown around by his self-assured approach. And over time, she has learned from the situation and is differentiating and is able to see it for what it is. This season, when he acts this way, she is able to push back and also not give in, seemingly, at least in the moment, and pull herself out of the situation when it seems like it's not going to go anywhere. And so my guess is that in this moment, he's a little baffled because normally this would have worked. At best, she would have been like, "You're right. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry too." I could see Liz saying something like that. Like, well, you can imagine Liz being tricked by the non-apology. She could have said, "Well, he apologized, and so he's now telling me that I did something wrong." And okay, maybe. Okay, well, I apologize to it. And then he feels satisfied because it feels like he has more control, and he is getting a little bit more control because he's kind of getting into her head, and he feels a little bit more secure, and then he lets it go, and then they can go on with their relationship. And every time they run into the situation, he's trying to get more and more of that. Now, again, I want to be clear. I'm not diagnosing from afar. I'm not saying that just to get out of a legal bind or a legal consequence. I literally believe, I know that I don't know the situation. We're watching a reality TV show. We're watching an edited show. We're watching people. They're all performing in front of the camera. They all know the camera is there. They're all presumably aware of that, and it does affect them. So who knows what's really happening. But I think right now he's baffled because normally it would work. She would apologize. They'd be able to move forward. But this time, because of the things that have been happening lately, maybe even her own therapy, I don't know, she's able to just be like, "No. I'm not going to, I always give in. I'm not going to do it. I'm done giving in this way." And she still wants to be with him, and she still might get back together with him, but at the very least, she doesn't want to give in and participate in the giving up of control and power and admitting that, yes, she was to blame for the entire situation. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.